It's Monday, August 31st. Welcome aboard to this edition of Barnstable Today. I'm Kevin Friel.
And I'm Andrew Gobiel. Thank you very much for joining us.
We'd like to remind you right at the top that the meetings we cover are available at the town's website, www.town.barnstable.ma.us.
More in the meetings as they progress later on this week. Obviously, starting to get back into the thick of things right now. It actually feels a little bit like fall. There's a bit of a chill in the air, at least compared to the heat and humidity we've been dealing with over the past few weeks. We'll get more into that in just a bit, but first a bit of a treat right now. You may recall that late last fall there were a number of turtle strandings across the Cape. Well, volunteers from the New England Aquarium up in Boston and from the Audubon Society helped nurse those turtles back to life, and then they released them last week. They released them actually at one of Barnstable's beaches, Dowse's Beach over in Osterville. I want to hear the interview and find out why they chose Dowse's Beach, but first a little explanation from one of the public relations guys over at the New England Aquarium and the actual turtle release. That's in this edition of Barnstable Today.
So the sea turtles that have a black shell to them, they're Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, and they are the most endangered sea turtle in the world. There's only 7 species of sea turtles, but there are probably only about 30 to 40,000 of those turtles left. And in this particular case, most of the strandings that we have on Cape Cod in the late autumn, about 90% of them are Kemp's Ridley sea turtles. And these are really young turtles. They're probably 2 to 4 years old. The thing that probably happens is that these turtles will come north in the summertime from the Gulf of Mexico, from the Florida coast, to be able to feed on crabs in the Cape Cod area. They're usually seen more often south of Cape Cod. Then what happens, though, is that all these strandings happen on the north side. They're happening usually in Cape Cod Bay. And what happens, the theory, in terms of what we best think happens, is that these turtles are trying to begin their migration, and they basically, as they try to swim out to the Gulf Stream, they might be grabbed by a local current early in the fall. They get dumped onto the north side of the Cape. And what happens is that their instinct tells them to swim south, but they got 60 miles of Cape Cod that they're running into. They swim east, they hit land, they swim west, they hit land. So it's very counterintuitive. They have to actually swim 25, 30 miles north to get out of Cape Cod Bay and go around Provincetown. So most of them don't figure that out because they're young and inexperienced animals. So what they do is at this time of year, their body temperature, again, sea turtles are reptiles, so they're cold-blooded, which means that they assume, their body temperature assumes the environmental temperature around them, which in this case will be water temperature. So around September 1, it's around 70 degrees. If they don't begin their migration around October 1, it's about 60 degrees, and around November 1, it's about 50 degrees. And almost like clockwork, we'll start seeing the very first strandings on October 31st or November 1st. They'll start coming in. And a group that's really important here is we've got an unbelievable group of volunteers and staff from the Massachusetts Audubon Sanctuary at Wellfleet Bay. And these are volunteers who are staff, they're retired people, they're young people who are basically going out on really cold mornings when it's cold and wet outside, and they're basically trying to find turtles as best where they've looked at the tides, they look at the prevailing winds, and they'll walk beaches everywhere from Truro down through Eastham and down to Dennis looking for turtles. And what's happened is that those turtles through the fall, their mobility has gotten lesser and lesser. So by the time October comes around, they're almost immobile in the water. And mid-October, they've also at that point become very vulnerable to all kinds of opportunistic infections. Think of it yourself in terms of if your metabolism was to get that slow. And they get to the point that they're literally just floating on the surface of the water. If they get lucky, around late October, early November, the northwest early winter winds will blow up and blow in, and they'll come ashore. And what will happen is those volunteers from Mass Audubon are really critical. They'll go out and looking for turtles. They can find turtles 1 or 2 at a time. There are days they'll find 25 turtles. And in an average, we'll get anywhere from 25 to 150 sea turtles that can strand in a single season. And the season will last all the way into mid-December.
So once again, it looks like it was a very successful release, which is a nice change from a few months ago. And according to biologist Kate Sardi, you guys were out here on beaches on the Cape and Islands area trying to get these stunned cold turtles, and you brought them back to life. Now, what's the process?
Well, around the end of October or early November, the water temperature around here starts to drop to a point that the turtles can't handle anymore. They actually get to around 50 degrees, and then they get hypothermic. They get too cold to actually forage and swim, so they end up just going into the stunned state, that they're in like a coma. And they float up to the surface, and then at that point the current just takes them into whatever beaches are close by.
So, of course, you guys come on down there. There's a stranding and a reported stranding, so you've got experts who come down and take care of them and bring them up to the aquarium.
Yes, actually we have a partnership with the Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary, and they are the ones that do the beach rescues. They walk the beaches in areas that are downwind, and they expect that turtles will be located, and so they pick up the turtles and they bring them up to us at the New England Aquarium. And at that point, they oftentimes the turtles have pneumonia, and they have frostbite, and they haven't been eating for a long time. They're really underweight, so they really need some pretty serious help.
Underweight didn't look like it was a problem here now.
No, certainly wasn't. They've been eating a lot of herring and squid, and they've gained a lot of weight.
Very nice. So we're here obviously because we're with the town of Barnstable. We're talking about why you're here, and it's pretty basic because Barnstable, specifically Douses, they're the nicest beaches in the area, right?
Douses is a beautiful beach.
Yeah.
We're actually very thankful to the town for letting us come back here year after year.
Well, honestly, why do you come to Douses?
Actually, because the town's been great to work with, and the beach is beautiful, and it's a nice straight shot for them into the water, and it's been just a really successful relationship for years.
Well, one of the things that I'm quite excited about, my two sons were, is that we're actually going to be able to track goose.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, goose is the only green sea turtle that we had in this release. And a green sea turtle is a little bit different than some of the others that we released today. We released Kemp's Ridley sea turtles, and we also had loggerheads that we had during the cold stud season this year. But the greens, actually, there's very little known about what they're doing offshore here. So there's two reasons why we would put a tag on goose when he leaves the beach here. The first one is to see if he does all right, if he's actually successful, is he is happy turtle and feeding and doing what he's supposed to do. And the second reason is to learn a little bit more about what green turtles are doing in this area. And we've tagged them in the past, and we found instead of going south that some of them actually go offshore and hit the Gulf Stream and overwinter up north here.
Really?
Yeah.
So is there any opportunity they end up on the shores of Scotland somewhere?
Probably not across the ocean, but they certainly could go up into the Nova Scotia area if they're a little bit offshore there.
Very good. So this, all in all, was very successful for you. And I mean, I would imagine that not only is it something that is altruistic where you go and you save the turtles, but you learn and you conduct research, which is going to benefit us eventually.
Absolutely. We learn a lot about these
softball,
turtles.
by the way.
We learn a lot about the turtles from the work that we do. We learn a lot about their biology and some of the threats that face them. We learn a lot about what their movements are, and so there's a lot that we can learn about not only treating them but their basic biology. And so it's really important work. And these also are endangered species. We want to get as many back out there as possible.
Once again, those turtles were released. One of the turtles, Goose is his name, actually has a radio transmitter on it. So if you're interested, we'll put the website down here. You can actually follow Goose's progress as he makes his way through Nantucket Sound and the Atlantic or wherever he is going. By the way, who are those kids in the background as they were shooting the release of the turtles anyway? Let's take a look at some of the meetings going on this week.
Monday, August 31st, there's a public meeting which includes a review of the draft coastal plan for 3 bays in the Centerville River at 7 o'clock in the Town Hall hearing room.
Conservation Commission hearing at 6:30 Tuesday night, September 1st in the Selectmen's Conference Room.
On Wednesday, September 2nd, the Highness Main Street Waterfront Historic District Commission has a meeting at 7 o'clock in the Selectmen's Conference Room.
And the Town Council meets at 7 o'clock in the Town Hall hearing room on Thursday, September 3rd. For Kevin Friel, I'm Andrew Gobiel. Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Barnstable Today.